The countdown timer blazes red: 0:47, 0:46, 0:45. James Carter's hands fly across the keyboard as sweat beads on his forehead. $300 million worth of rocket sits on the launch pad, and the entire mission hangs by a thread. Come on, he whispers, his fingers dancing over the controls with surgical precision. The room falls silent except for the relentless ticking of the clock. But what happened next shocked everyone in NASA's mission control room. Let me take you back to where this incredible story really begins. James Carter never imagined his Tuesday morning would start with a cup of lukewarm coffee and end with him becoming NASA's most unlikely hero. At 28, he's already spent 4 years at NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston, but most days feel like he's fighting an uphill battle. While his white colleagues get assigned to the high-profile missions, James finds himself relegated to routine maintenance checks and system diagnostics. Morning, Carter, his supervisor Mike Rodriguez calls out as James settles into his workstation. Got another thrilling day of backup system checks for you. James forces a smile. Wouldn't have it any other way, Mike. But beneath that cheerful exterior burns an unquenchable passion for space exploration that's driven him since childhood. Growing up in Detroit, James would spend hours on his grandmother's roof, staring at the stars through a makeshift telescope he built from spare parts. His mother, a single parent working double shifts at the Ford plant, used to find him there at midnight, sketching rocket designs in his notebook. That boy's gonna reach those stars someday, she'd tell the neighbors. Mark my words. Little did she know just how prophetic those words would prove to be. The mission control room buzzes with unusual energy this morning. Today marks the final preparation phase for the Artemis 7 launch, NASA's most ambitious lunar mission in decades. The rocket carries revolutionary technology that could change space exploration forever, including experimental propulsion systems worth hundreds of millions of dollars. James overhears fragments of conversations as engineers hurry past his station. Final systems check at 1400 hours. Launch window opens tomorrow at 06:30. Can't afford any delays with this one. He tries to focus on his mundane tasks, but his eyes keep drifting to the massive screens displaying the rocket's telemetry data. Every fiber of his being yearns to be part of something bigger, something that matters. Carter, you're needed in Base 7, comes a voice over the intercom. Suspected anomaly in the backup navigation systems. As James walks through NASA's gleaming corridors, he passes photos of legendary astronauts and engineers. Their faces seem to watch him, and he wonders if he'll ever join their ranks or remain forever in the shadows. This decision would change everything, though he doesn't know it yet. The backup navigation bay hums with activity. Junior technicians scurry around banks of computers, their faces etched with concern. James approaches the lead technician, Maria Santos, who's been staring at her screen for the past 20 minutes. What VE we got? James asks, peering over her shoulder. It's weird, Maria replies, pointing to cascading lines of code. The backup navigation system keeps throwing random errors, but when we run diagnostics, everything checks out fine. It's like the system is arguing with itself. James studies the data patterns, his mind automatically cataloging anomalies. His professors at MIT called it his gift, the ability to see patterns where others see chaos. Within minutes, he identifies something that makes his blood run cold. Maria, when did these errors start? About 6 hours ago, around 0300. And they're only affecting the backup systems? So far, yeah. Primary systems are clean. But the real shock was still coming. As James dives deeper into the code, he discovers something that shouldn't exist, subtle modifications to the navigation algorithms that could prove catastrophic if the primary systems fail during launch. Someone has been tampering with the software, and they've been incredibly clever about it. Maria, we need to escalate this immediately, James says, his voice tight with urgency. These aren't random errors. Someone's been in the system. Before Maria can respond, alarms begin blaring throughout the facility. The overhead speakers crackle to life, all personnel to emergency stations. Critical countdown system malfunction detected. This is not a drill. James's heart pounds as he realizes the scope of what's happening. The same signature he found in the backup navigation system could be affecting the primary countdown sequence. With less than 18 hours until launch, a countdown malfunction could mean disaster. As technicians scramble around him, James makes a split-second decision that will define his career. Instead of waiting for orders, he rushes toward the main control room where the countdown systems are housed. His supervisor's voice echoes behind him, "Carter. Where are you going? You don't have clearance for..." But James is already gone, racing against time toward a moment that will prove his grandmother was right about reaching the stars. Little did he know that in the next few minutes, everything he thought he knew about his place at NASA was about to be turned upside down. The countdown timer continues its relentless march toward zero, and James Carter is about to discover that sometimes the most extraordinary opportunities come disguised as impossible challenges. The warning alarm pierces through the NASA facility like a blade cutting through silence. James Carter's heart pounds against his ribcage as he sprints down the sterile corridors, his footsteps echoing off the walls lined with mission patches from decades of space exploration. The fluorescent lights blur overhead as he races toward Control Room Alpha, where the countdown malfunction has triggered a facility-wide alert. "James, thank God you're here," Dr. Sarah Thompson calls out as he bursts through the heavy doors. At 62, Sarah has weathered more NASA crises than anyone in the building, her silver hair pulled back in the same practical bun she's worn for 30 years. Her worried eyes meet his, and instantly James feels both the weight of expectation and the familiar warmth of her mentorship. The control room buzzes with frantic energy. Engineers huddle around computer terminals, their faces illuminated by screens filled with cascading error messages. The massive countdown display at the front of the room flickers ominously, numbers jumping erratically between sequences. "What's the status?" James asks, already pulling up diagnostic screens on his workstation. "The primary countdown timer is glitching," Sarah explains, her voice steady despite the chaos around them. "But James, this isn't just a simple malfunction." She lowers her voice and leans closer. "The error patterns are too systematic. Too deliberate." As James analyzes the data streams, his mind drifts back to 3 years ago when Sarah first took him under her wing. He remembers sitting in her cramped office, feeling defeated after his third proposal for the Mars rover project had been rejected without explanation. "James," Sarah had said then, her voice gentle but firm, "your ideas aren't the problem. Your calculations are flawless, your innovations are brilliant. But you're fighting more than just engineering challenges here." She had gestured toward the window overlooking the launch pad. "This place has a long history of overlooking talent that doesn't fit their expected mold. But I've seen what you can do when given the chance." That conversation had changed everything. Sarah didn't just mentor his technical skills, she taught him how to navigate the unspoken politics of NASA, how to present his ideas in ways that couldn't be dismissed, and most importantly, how to trust his instincts even when others doubted them. Back in the present, James's fingers fly across the keyboard, diving deeper into the system's core programming. What he discovers makes his blood run cold. The malfunction isn't random at all. Someone has deliberately inserted code designed to corrupt the countdown sequence at specific intervals. "Sarah, look at this," he whispers urgently, pointing to lines of suspicious code on his screen. Before she can respond, Tom Mitchell, the senior systems engineer, approaches their workstation. His face is flushed with irritation, and James notices how his colleagues seem to part like the Red Sea as Tom storms over. "Carter, what the hell are you doing over here?" Tom demands, his voice carrying across the room. "This is way above your pay grade. We've got senior engineers handling this crisis." "I'm trying to help identify the source of the problem," James responds evenly, though his jaw tightens. "Help?" Tom laughs harshly. "You think we need help from someone who's been here, 2 years? Stand down and let the real engineers handle this." But Sarah steps forward, her voice cutting through Tom's dismissal like steel. "Tom, James has identified patterns in the malfunction that suggest deliberate sabotage. His analysis is exactly what we need right now. The word sabotage ripples through the control room like a shockwave. Engineers stop their frantic typing and turn to stare. The weight of implication settles over everyone like a heavy blanket. Tom's face turns an even deeper shade of red. Sabotage? That's a serious accusation, Thompson. Are you sure your protege here isn't just trying to make himself look important? James feels the familiar sting of being reduced to Sarah's protege rather than being recognized for his own capabilities. But something in Sarah's expression stops him from responding defensively. There's something else there, a flicker of knowledge she hasn't shared. James, Sarah says quietly, pulling him aside as the room continues to buzz with tension. I need to tell you something, but not here. Meet me in conference room B in 10 minutes. And James? She pauses, her eyes scanning the room full of their colleagues. Be very careful who you trust right now. As she walks away, James notices how Sarah's eyes linger on certain faces in the crowd. Dr. Rachel Santos from the Systems Integration Team. Mark Freeman from Mission Control. Even Tom Mitchell, whose hostilities seemed almost too convenient, too perfectly timed. The countdown display flickers again, and James realizes they have less than 18 hours before the scheduled launch. 18 hours to not only fix a sabotaged system but to figure out who among his colleagues has betrayed everything NASA stands for. His hands shake slightly as he closes his laptop. The technical challenge suddenly seems like the easiest part of what lies ahead. But Sarah's expression haunts him as she disappears down the corridor. What does she know that she hasn't told him? And why does he get the sinking feeling that the person he trusts most might be hiding the biggest secret of all? James stares at the email notification blinking on his screen, his heart pounding against his ribcage. The sabotage evidence sits before him like a loaded weapon, and he knows that pulling this trigger could destroy everything he's worked for. The launch is in 18 hours, and every second of delay could cost NASA millions, not to mention the crew's safety window. You look like you've seen a ghost, Marcus Williams says, sliding into the adjacent workstation. Marcus has been James's closest ally in the engineering department, the one person who never questioned his capabilities or made him feel like he didn't belong. But now, as James glances at the suspicious access logs on his screen, Marcus's name appears repeatedly in the restricted system files. James's throat goes dry. Marcus, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be straight with me. Shoot. Have you been accessing the countdown protocol systems outside of your clearance level? Marcus's expression shifts, a flicker of something unreadable crossing his features. What are you getting at, James? The silence stretches between them like a chasm. James watches his friend's face, searching for the truth he's dreading to find. The system logs show multiple unauthorized entries from your terminal. The same terminals that had access to the corrupted code segments. Marcus stands abruptly, his chair rolling backward. You're seriously accusing me of sabotage? After everything we've been through together? But here's what James doesn't expect. The genuine hurt in Marcus's voice sounds authentic, but his defensive posture tells a different story. James realizes that in this high-stakes environment, even the people closest to you might have hidden agendas. I'm not accusing anyone yet, James says carefully. I'm trying to piece together what happened before I take this to leadership. Before you throw your colleagues under the bus, you mean? Marcus's voice carries a bitter edge. You know what your problem is, James? You're so desperate to prove yourself that you're willing to sacrifice anyone who gets in your way. The accusation hits like a physical blow. James has spent years fighting the stereotype that he's only here because of affirmative action, that he hasn't earned his place. Now his own colleague is weaponizing those insecurities against him. Sarah appears at the workstation entrance, her timing impeccable as always. Gentlemen, we have a problem. The simulation I ran on James's initial fix just failed catastrophically. The countdown system isn't just glitched, it's fundamentally compromised. James pulls up the simulation results, his heart sinking as he sees the cascade of failures. What he thought was a simple timer malfunction is actually a sophisticated attack on the entire launch sequence. If they proceed with the current code, the rocket could explode on the launch pad. How is that possible? Marcus asks, but James notices he doesn't seem surprised by the news. Sarah leans closer to James's monitor, her voice dropping to a whisper. There's something else. I've been monitoring internal communications, and someone's been feeding information to outside sources. Someone with intimate knowledge of our security protocols. The implication hangs heavy between them. Marcus shifts uncomfortably, and James catches the slight tremor in his hands. We need to inform Director Hayward immediately, James says, reaching for his phone. Wait. Sarah's hand covers his. If we alert leadership now without concrete proof, they'll shut down the entire launch sequence. That's 18 months of work down the drain, millions in lost funding, and the crew's mission window closes for another 2 years. James stares at the screen showing the corrupted code. Every instinct tells him to report this immediately, but Sarah's practical concerns weigh heavily. The space program has already faced massive budget cuts, and another failed launch could mean the end of several critical projects. So what are you suggesting? He asks. Give me 2 more hours. Let me trace the source of the breach definitively. If we can identify exactly who's responsible and how they did it, we can present a complete solution instead of just more problems. Marcus nods eagerly. Sarah's right. We don't want to cry wolf if there's a chance we can fix this internally. But James notices something that makes his blood run cold. When Sarah mentioned tracing the breach, Marcus's eyes darted toward the emergency exit. It's a subtle movement, but James has learned to read body language in high-pressure situations. His phone buzzes with a text from an unknown number. Stop digging or the launch isn't the only thing that will fail. James's hands freeze over his keyboard. Someone knows exactly what he's discovered, and they're watching his every move. The question is whether that someone is sitting right next to him, offering advice that might be designed to buy more time for sabotage. As he looks around the control room, James realizes that the countdown timer isn't the only thing that's been compromised. His trust in the people around him is crumbling by the minute, and with 16 hours left until launch, he's running out of allies he can count on. The worst part? He's beginning to suspect that Sarah's request for 2 more hours isn't about finding the saboteur, it's about giving them time to finish whatever they started. The seconds ticked away like gunshots in James's mind as he stared at the simulation results on his screen. The temporary fix he'd discovered just hours ago was crumbling before his eyes, new error codes cascading down the monitor in angry red text. His hands trembled slightly as he adjusted his glasses, the weight of the entire mission pressing down on his shoulders. This can't be happening, he whispered, running another diagnostic. The countdown timer in the corner of his screen showed 18 minutes until launch sequence initialization. 18 minutes to solve a problem that seemed to grow more complex with every passing second. James's fingers flew across the keyboard, inputting commands with the desperation of a man racing against time itself. Each calculation, each line of code felt like a prayer sent into the digital void. But as he watched his latest attempt fail, a cold realization washed over him: someone had designed this malfunction to be nearly impossible to fix. The control room buzzed with nervous energy around him. Engineers whispered in hushed tones, their faces pale with worry. Mission Director Williams paced behind the main console, his usual calm demeanor cracking under pressure. "Carter!" Williams called out, his voice cutting through the tension. "Tell me you've got something." James looked up from his screen, sweat beading on his forehead despite the air conditioning. "Sir, I need to run one more simulation. If my calculations are correct, I think I can isolate the corrupted subroutine." But as he initiated the test sequence, something unexpected happened. Hidden deep within the system files, James discovered something that made his blood run cold: timestamps and digital fingerprints that shouldn't exist. Someone with high-level access had been systematically altering the countdown protocols for weeks. "My God," James breathed, his eyes widening as he traced the digital breadcrumbs. The evidence was undeniable. This wasn't just negligence or a random glitch, this was deliberate sabotage from someone inside NASA itself. His hands shook as he printed out the incriminating data. Every modified file, every unauthorized access log painted a picture of betrayal that ran deeper than he'd imagined. The question that burned in his mind was simple yet terrifying: who could he trust with this information? The control room door burst open, and Sarah Thompson rushed in, her usual composed expression replaced by barely contained panic. She made a beeline for James's workstation, her eyes scanning his findings over his shoulder. "James, what have you found?" she asked, her voice tight with urgency. "Sarah, look at this," James said, pointing to the evidence on his screen. "Someone's been sabotaging the countdown system for weeks. The digital signatures lead all the way up to senior administration level." Sarah's face went ashen as she absorbed the information. For a moment, silence hung between them like a loaded weapon. Then she straightened, her resolve crystallizing. "We need to take this to Williams immediately," she said. "But James, you realize what this means, don't you? Once we expose this, there's no going back. Careers will be destroyed. Lives will be ruined." James stood up, clutching the printed evidence in his hands. Every fiber of his being screamed that this was the right thing to do, regardless of the consequences. The integrity of the mission, and potentially the lives of the astronauts, hung in the balance. "I know," he said quietly, his voice steady with newfound determination. "But I'd rather destroy a few careers than watch this rocket fail because I stayed silent." Together, they marched across the control room toward Williams's station. The mission director looked up as they approached, his weathered face creased with worry. "Sir," James said, his voice cutting through the ambient noise of the control room, "I've discovered the source of our countdown malfunction. And sir, it's not what any of us expected." Williams's eyes narrowed as James handed him the evidence. The older man's face grew darker with each page he read, his jaw clenching as the full scope of the sabotage became clear. "Jesus Christ," Williams muttered under his breath. "This goes all the way to Deputy Director Morrison's access codes." The revelation hit the small group like a physical blow. Morrison, the man who'd been publicly championing this mission, who'd shaken hands with politicians and promised the American people a flawless launch, had been systematically undermining their efforts from the inside. "Sir, we have less than 10 minutes until launch sequence initialization," James said, his voice steady despite the chaos unfolding around them. "I believe I can fix the countdown system, but I need administrative override access to implement the solution." Williams looked at James for a long moment, weighing the magnitude of the decision. The control room seemed to hold its breath as the mission director processed the implications of what they'd discovered. "Carter," Williams said finally, his voice heavy with responsibility, "I'm giving you full system access. Whatever you need to do, you do it. Can you get us back online?" James nodded, his confidence building with each passing second. "Yes, sir. I can fix this." "Then do it," Williams commanded. "And Carter, after this is over, I want you to know that NASA will be offering you a position that reflects your true capabilities. Consider this your audition for a senior engineering role." As James rushed back to his workstation, his heart pounding with a mixture of terror and exhilaration, the countdown clock showed 7 minutes and 38 seconds until launch sequence initialization. The most critical moments of his career, and possibly his entire life, were about to begin. James studies the countdown system one final time, his hands steady despite the billions of dollars and countless lives depending on his next move. The control room falls silent except for the mechanical hum of computers. Everyone knows this is it, the moment that will either vindicate years of doubt or confirm their worst fears about trusting an outsider with their most critical operation. 60 seconds to launch window, announces mission control. The pressure in the room becomes suffocating. James closes his eyes for just a moment, remembering Sarah's words about trusting his instincts. His fingers dance across the keyboard with surgical precision, implementing a solution that shouldn't work according to conventional wisdom but feels absolutely right in his bones. The algorithm he's creating bypasses 3 levels of standard protocol, routing the countdown through backup systems in a way no one has ever attempted. "What is he doing?" whispers one technician to another. "That's not in any manual." The countdown timer flickers, showing error for a terrifying 3 seconds. James's heart hammers against his ribcage. Then, like a miracle, the numbers stabilize. The countdown resumes, T-minus 30 seconds and counting. My God, Sarah breathes, watching from across the room. He actually did it. The rocket ignites with a thunderous roar that shakes the entire facility. Through the observation windows, they watch as humanity's most ambitious mission lifts off flawlessly, cutting through the Florida sky like a silver arrow aimed at the stars. The control room erupts in cheers, but James remains focused on his monitors, ensuring every system maintains perfect synchronization. Launch trajectory nominal, calls out the flight director. All systems green across the board. Only then does James allow himself to smile. He's done it, not just fixed the countdown, but revolutionized how they'll approach complex system failures forever. Dr. Williams approaches, his earlier skepticism completely transformed into genuine admiration. Carter, in 30 years at NASA, I've never seen anything like what you just accomplished. That solution, it's brilliant. It's going to change how we think about redundancy systems. The celebration continues around them, but James notices Sarah making her way through the crowd. When she reaches him, her eyes are bright with tears of pride. You know what this means, don't you? She asks quietly. Before James can respond, Director Martinez appears at his shoulder. Carter, I need to speak with you privately. The room seems to hold its breath as they step aside. What you've done today goes far beyond fixing a technical problem. You've shown leadership under impossible pressure, innovative thinking that saved a billion-dollar mission, and the kind of character we desperately need in our senior positions. James feels his world shifting on its axis. I'm offering you the position of Senior Systems Director, Martinez continues. You'd be overseeing all critical countdown operations for future missions. It comes with a team of 12 engineers, a substantial salary increase, and the kind of security clearance that puts you in the room where the biggest decisions get made. The offer hangs in the air between them. This is everything James has dreamed of: recognition, respect, and the chance to shape the future of space exploration. But more than that, it represents validation that his ideas, his approaches, his very presence here matters. I accept, James says without hesitation. The announcement spreads through the control room like wildfire. Colleagues who once viewed him with suspicion now approach with handshakes and congratulations. The transformation is remarkable. Where once he faced closed doors and subtle barriers, he now sees genuine collaboration and excitement about working together. 6 months later, James stands in the same control room, but everything has changed. His nameplate reads Senior Systems Director James Carter, and the countdown system now incorporates the revolutionary protocols he developed during that critical moment. 3 successful launches have followed, each one building on his innovations. Sarah visits his new office, larger now with windows overlooking the launch pads. Remember when you thought you didn't belong here? She asks, gesturing toward the wall displaying commendations from NASA leadership. I almost gave up so many times, James reflects. But I'm glad I trusted that voice inside telling me I had something valuable to contribute. The story of James Carter proves that brilliance doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it emerges in moments of crisis, when someone refuses to accept that impossible problems don't have solutions. His journey from overlooked engineer to senior leadership demonstrates that perseverance, combined with genuine expertise and the courage to think differently, can overcome any barrier. Today, James leads a diverse team of engineers who bring fresh perspectives to humanity's greatest challenges. His success has opened doors for others who might have been overlooked, creating ripple effects that extend far beyond NASA's walls. What seemed like an ending was actually a beginning, proof that when we dare to believe in ourselves and push past the limitations others place on us, we don't just achieve our dreams, we transform entire industries and inspire others to reach for the stars.